วัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีค่ะทุกคนนะคะที่ชมรายการสัมมนาของเราวันนี้นะคะ
โอกาสพิเศษนะคะตื่นเต้นมากครั้งหนึ่งในชีวิตนะคะที่คุณมานูเอลลาเวโนกับคุณพอลรูบี้จาก Ruby Law Group นะคะจะมาให้ความรู้และคำแนะนำเกี่ยวกับโครงการ EB-3 Unskilled โปรแกรมของเรานะคะ
ใช่ค่ะวันนี้นะคะข้อมูลไม่ใช่พื้นนะคะข้อมูลเชิงลึกเลยนะคะแล้วอย่างที่พี่นีน่าบอกนะคะโอกาสนี่ยากมากที่จะเจอพอลรูบี้นะคะเข้ามาร่วมรายการนะคะข้อมูลเชิงลึกตัวนี้ก็จะเป็นขบวนการต่างๆนะคะที่ทำงานร่วมกันนะคะระหว่าง KBB C นะคะแล้วก็ Ruby Law Firm นะคะ
ซึ่งทาง MCC USA เนี่ยก็มีประสบการณ์ในการทำงานด้านนำผู้สมัคร EB-3 Unskilled โปรแกรมเข้ามาทำงานที่สหรัฐอเมริกาเป็นระยะเวลา10 กว่าปีแล้วก็มีกลุ่ม Ruby Law Group ที่ดำเนินการด้านเอกสารแล้วก็ดำเนินการในการไฟล์ต่างๆนะคะให้กับทางผู้สมัครทั้งหมดซึ่งตรงนี้ท่านจะได้มาแชร์ความรู้แล้วก็สิ่งที่น่าสนใจต่างๆให้เรา
แล้วก็พอรูบี้นี่นะคะก็คือทนายคนนี้นะคะที่ดูแลเคสทั้งหมดของพวกเรานะคะดูแลเคสทั้งหมดของพวกเราเลยตั้งแต่ต้นยันจบนะคะแล้วก็วันนี้ก็โอกาสพิเศษจริงๆนะคะทุกคนที่มีคำถามนะคะใส่คำถามกันทิ้งไว้ข้างล่างนี้ได้เลยนะคะเพราะว่าเดี๋ยวเราจะให้ทีมงานนะคะรวบรวมคำถามนะคะที่มีโอกาสที่จะได้ถามโดยตรงสดๆนะคะจากทางทนายโดยตรงเลยนะคะ
ถึงเวลาแล้วนะคะ Please welcome Mr. Manuel Levano กับคุณ Paul Ruby from Ruby Law Group. Please welcome.
Hello everyone. Thanks for the invite. Hi Paul.
Hello, good morning. Hi Manuel. Hi Paul. Could you please introduce yourself?
Yes. Well, again, thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure being here. My name is Manuel Levano. I'm the CEO of MCC USA.
Hi, everyone. My name is Paul Ruby. I'm a business immigration lawyer. I live in a city called Nashville, Tennessee, which is kind of in the southeast part of the U.S., but the immigration rules here are set by the national government. So they apply everywhere. That means we work with businesses all over the country, to help manage the legal processes for the MCC cases. So thank you for having me and look forward to whatever you want to discuss today. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will give the stage to the two of you to talk about the EB-3, the opportunity for people who want to get the green card to the U.S. and opportunity to know about legal insight.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you, Paul. I think that it's I think probably if you agree, I like to to start before talking about about MCC, and about Ruby Law Group. I always like to go back to the very beginning, correct? Of the very beginning, it's what is the EB-3 process and why it was created, correct? Because not many people understand that. So and from there, I think it's important for people to, once you understand why it was created and who this solution was created for, I think there will be a lot of the answers will be resolved, without even just understanding why and how this works, correct? So this in the employment-based preference and Paul, I'm jump anytime On the EB-3 process, the EB-3 employment-based third preference, the employment-based third preference it was a solution to a problem, correct? That it was a solution to a problem that it was introduced. The solution was introduced in the 1990. The problem, what was the problem in the 1990? It is still the same problem as 2025, but now the problem has multiplied. But the problem in the 1990s was that certain industries were having a very difficult time trying to get local workers. So companies were losing money at that time. And, some industries going back, in the 1990s, and Paul, correct, there were still health. The health industry has always had a shortage. But in the 90s, it was more about rural, like a very difficult time to get workers in rural areas, correct? Not so much in the cities. So in the 90s, a lot of like agricultural poultry farms, but especially and also industries, for example, like the transportation, long haul drivers. These being industries that in the 90s they were having a lot of trouble. So EB-3, the employment-based preference was created by the government as a solution to that specific problem, correct? So the solution to that specific problem, was okay. If you are not able to find these workers, in good faith, meaning that if you actually try and you can't find and you follow the recruiting guidelines and you cannot find the local workers, and also as a company you have the ability to pay the wages, you have the financial ability, then you are going to be able, then that solution was through the EB-3 process, you are going to be able to offer the job to a foreign national that is willing and qualified to do the job. And through the program, they said, if you offer the job, then you're able to sponsor that worker's green card in return of a long-term commitment. So it was created as a solution for companies. It was that, and that was in the 1990s. But again, this is a solution. Sometimes, Paul, and this is something that we hear sometimes people, it says, why I never heard about the EB-3 process? Remember, we had these about several years ago. Now EB-3 is more popular, but several years ago, absolutely no one knew about the EB-3 process. And people were talking to us and why, I spoke to an immigration attorney and they never gave me the option. Well, because the EB-3 option is a solution for companies, not for people. It is a company who are struggling to find workers, is able to offer the job to a foreign national and a sponsor. The foreign worker, we call them dependent. This is, I would say, Paul, I don't know if this is the correct word, but it's a collateral. The company offered the job, the company sponsor is a solution for the company is the petitioner, and you, because you applied to that job, you're going to get as a collateral your green card sponsor. Correct. So that's how, and then now, I would say that was 35 years later, correct? The problem, it just exploded. It's not anymore on health. It is in every single industry. And there is one very simple explanation. It is the offer is way larger than the demand. Simple, it's not about, there's more jobs available than people looking for jobs. So it's very easy to understand why there is this. So the problem is still, and right now you see the problem in Manhattan, you see the problem in Los Angeles, you see the problem in Miami, you see the problem in Atlanta, you see the problem everywhere. And that's how it's like, Paul, I don't know if you can elaborate more on the kind of like,
Yeah, I mean, look, I think what Manuel is saying critically is that this is a process that's been around for a long time. We know how it works. I myself have been doing this almost 20 years at this point. I started as a lawyer in 2007, which was right around the time they moved from filing the labor certifications or PERMs, 9089s, whatever you want to call them, from doing it on paper to doing it in an online system. So, that's how long I've been doing this. But I think the key point here, as we discuss everything, is that, a business immigration system set up by a country where people want to get to, from all over the world. And so that would be, what you'd expect. US, Canada, England, most of, Western Europe, Australia, places like that. There's lots of ways to do that. And you can link the business immigration to either the person or to the job. And the US has a little bit of both, but it's mainly linked to the job. And that's true whether you're in a non-immigrant visa that's shorter term, H-2B, H-1B, L-1, anything like that. Or it can be, when you're in our case of the, EB-1, EB-2, EB-3 green cards. And so that's, I think, kind of the critical point from Manuel here is this is not something that we are entirely in control of. We, do everything that we can, but it requires an employer who is, willing to, agree to take this person on, that has, a position for them, that has, enough money so it can be shown that they can pay, anyone they're hiring. And we have to do a whole bunch of things, before we can even start filing the 9089s, anything like that. But it all comes back to, that we need the employer's, approval and assistance and to work with them. And of course, we do many things, to, keep them happy. Most importantly, a lot of these are longer term employers. People have already begun arriving. Things are, doing well. We try to make the process as easy as we can on them, helping them, place ads and getting them, to just approve things that we create or submit and so on. And so there's a lot on that side as well. And the thing I always say about this process is that we are either going to succeed together or we are going to succeed not at all. There's not a middle, kind of option. There. And when I say all of us, it means like everyone's got to do their job. My office, MCC, KPB, the clients, the employer, everyone has, an important role to serve in this. We all work together. We all do quite well. I know, my office, MCC, have been doing this a very long time. I know a lot of the people at KBB, even though maybe it's a slightly newer company, have experience way beyond, that's older than the company is, and have been doing this for a long time. And so we know how to get people through the process, lead them, get success at each stage. Yes, it does not go as quickly as any of us want. The employers also, of course, they needed these people the day they started. That's why they agreed to sign up for this. So, I think that's kind of our overview of the process. And then, we can address anything specifically. I can go to the questions, anything else you tell me.
Yeah, correct. So at the end, as Paul said, and that's how, I like it. So right now, the company at the end, and this is, as Paul said, that is everyone has to do their part. Also, it's very important, and the most important thing is that the companies here, they're not trying to help anyone but themselves, correct? This is very important for everyone to understand. Companies are doing this because they just simply can't find enough local workers. That's why they're doing it. It's not because they want to sponsor somebody's green card, because they can't find local workers. They, through the EB-3 process, they're gonna be able to solve part of that problem and hire a local worker, and then they're going to sponsor the green card in return of a long-term commitment. As Paul said, what's MCC's job, correct? So at the beginning, once we offer the solution to the company, then the office of Paul, as an immigration attorney, comes in, and they actually are the ones who kind of like guide the process. I would say, let's call them the process for the company to be embedded by the Department of Labor, correct? So just proving and getting all the filings, 9141, and all these local advertise, coordinate everything with the sponsor. Sponsor is the one that is in charge, but Paul guide them through the legal process. Once that's approved, that's where MCC and KPV comes in, correct? It's that one is that job, it's approved. Our what we do is connect people like everyone who's joining us today, to get people connected with these job opportunities, but not just get them connected. We have to educate them, correct? It's our job to educate them on how this process works. And so people understand they're able to get their green card, correct? And add their immediate family, spouse, and kids under the age of 21 into the process. So once they arrive into the country, they will be arriving as a permanent resident, correct? Into the country. And once we recruit them, correct? Once KPV recruits them, and then that files, once we recruit them, then there is the application process. The application process is run by the employer. They decided, they look at they look at the application, they decided. There's some employers that interview, there's some employers that don't interview, correct? That's really depends, but that's in charge of the employer. Once the employer says, you know what, I like Manuel and I want to move forward with Manuel, that's where you sign an agreement that specifies your sponsor and specify the cost associated with your process, correct? With your legal process. And then that's the office of Paul Ruby comes in again, because they are the ones, that will be the attorneys in record for the legal, like sponsoring the immigration process of getting the green card. And then once that process starts, MCC becomes kind of like we serve as an account manager, kind of like to help the communication in between the office of Paul is going to be directly with you guys, getting the documents filed, but we act as I would say as a project manager, just to make sure that everything, all the communication goes smoothly. And that's how the process works. But that's, I think that's understanding why this works, and understanding the stakeholders of the process. As Paul said, the company owns the process. So you guys are not being sponsored by MCC or by Paul Ruby, are being sponsored by the company, and that company has already been approved by the Department of Labor, correct, through the PERM. Then MCC recruits, then the office of Paul Ruby is the attorney that do all the legal immigration filing. And then we have also KPV as a recruiter, but and then it's you guys, the applicant. We say applicants, but Paul, really the applicant is the company and they are the beneficiaries, correct? Sometimes, yes, you're the applicant, but really within the EB-3 process, the applicant, it's the company. The company is the one that applies. That's the whole thing about this, And there, I will say, just to I think the last piece of the puzzle to understand this, it's the requirements, correct? So for the company, there are certain requirements for the company, and there's a requirements for the beneficiary, the international worker. So for the company, the requirements for the company are simple, and Paul, correct me, if I'm missing anything. So the first one is the company must prove that they cannot find enough local workers by following the guidelines of the PERM process, correct? So the second is they need to prove ability to pay. So and the third is when they're proving, when the companies are proving that they cannot find enough local workers, they have to advertise locally, correct? They have to prove that there is actually enough people, and that vacancy will have to be advertised as a full-time position, which in the state, Paul, correct me, that type of jobs are normally advertised hourly position. Here, okay, you need people, advertise on a full-time position because you need people. So these are the 3 requirements. So the positions, for example, whenever you see a Stoughton or Chick-fil-A, or let's say that position has been already being approved by the Department of Labor. And companies like Stoughton, we are in the 14th or 15th round of recruiting. We have over 3,000 people in the process and hundreds of people that already cleared the process and arrive and work for the employer, correct? So that's for the employer. And then for the beneficiary or the applicant, or it's called the applicant, called the beneficiary, the worker, correct? It's first, you must have a job, you must have a job you must have a job from one of these companies that has been already approved by the Department of Labor, correct? So you must have apply and get accepted from one of these companies. That's the first thing. The second one, so depends on the job. There are some requirements. There's some jobs that do have requirement. There's some jobs that don't have requirement, correct? So for example, sometimes we have jobs that have a requirement because it is on the home health care caregiving position, companion caregiving. Some of those positions, you need to have direct experience, correct? But some position like Stoughton or the Chick-fil-A position, you don't need to have any experience. You don't need to have any type of experience or education. So you need to have a job. From this, the second one is now for the immigration process. You cannot have any type of inadmissibilities. And this is not just for the EB-3 process, correct, Paul? This is just in general, inadmissibilities are set by, it's for the whole immigrant visas. And this, I'm going to try to put Paul, summarize those. But the first one, once you get a job, it's you cannot have a criminal record or a profile that will put in risk the United States security. So that means no criminal record, no criminal record. You cannot have any ties, to terrorists, to communists, be actively involved with communists, within communist government. That's on one, which means the profile of not, so your profile cannot endanger the security of the United States. The second that I will summarize, it will be the medical inadmissibility. So at the end of the process, once before going into the final interview, you need to go to a medical examinations. It is a private meeting with the doctors, but normally they try to look for, they take a blood test and they try to look for STDs, sexual transmitted disease, which are listed, tuberculosis, correct? And, and so that's I would say the second one. And the third one, it is not mandatory to have any type of visa to apply for this position. But if you had a visa currently have a visa, the department, the National Visa Center, they're going to look into that you have made a good use of the visa, correct? If you have had a visa, correct, you've been to the United States. So if you've been deported and things like that, you have to, every case is analyzed, correct, individually. But will be the third, having, if you've been to the state, having having a good use. Those are the 3 things: companies, and for companies, and so if you have, we have jobs available for you to apply. That's one. So if you get accepted, don't worry about the jobs. We represent the jobs, correct? If you don't have inadmissibilities and you have made a good use of your visa, or if you have not been to the United States, which is fine, then your process, your whole process, you meet the requirements, correct? So you will have a very highly success, process. Yes, that there could be times, and Paul, on denials coming from things that are not related to you, misinterpretation of an agency, I would say a typo or a mistake from a law firm in preparing the document. That's why working with experienced attorneys is a must. It's not about working with just any attorneys. It's working with attorneys that have experience working in the EB-3 process. So those are the three things. And I think that, how this program starts, how it is a solution, the stakeholders of the program. So what's MCC, what's Paul Ruby, what's KPV, what's the role of the person, and understanding the requirements. That's the whole program about, correct? And also, MCC and Paul, we have helped thousands of people. So we have helped thousands of people. We have tremendous results. Why companies like Stoughton keep doing this is because we have shown them very good results. And what's a good result? Solid workers coming in, and staying with the company, doing a good job. That's why they stayed. So that's why, we are the best in our industry. Paul and MCC, and also KPV as our partner is doing a tremendous job, in developing not just Thailand, not just Thailand. I think this the part of the Southeast Asia doing a tremendous job on getting solid people. So that's so I think that's about the EB-3 process. I will say the most important things that you need to know. I don't know, Paul, and then if you want to add something else for people, kind of like to grasp before we jump into the question
Sure. No, I mean, I think you covered everything that I would have wanted to say. I think that's all the key information. So happy to get into the questions now or, discuss anything else.
Okay. No, I think in this case, I think Nina and Kate, I think we're ready for questions. I think that was the most important part of people to, to understand a little bit of the background. Again, that you guys are going to talk about the job opportunities. And one thing I wanted to tell everyone, it's that one of these job opportunities, there's different job opportunities, but there's one that I will say, for me, I always said that a company, this process is taking, longer. So the process time has increased. And there's just one explanation for that. Very simple. Before COVID, there were more visas available than people going into final stages. Since COVID, this whole, after COVID, the whole shortage exploded, and right now companies start becoming aware of these EB-3 opportunities, correct? So they applicate, so there's now, it went like that of more companies sponsoring workers. So why the process are, at the end, yes, people blame the government and things like that, but the main poll, correct, the main response is there's just more people applying into the process than what it used to be before, and that's why the process is taking longer. So right now we're talking about, so what we can say is that for the past, I will say 80 green cards that we got approved in the last couple months, I will say, Paul, that on average it will be 36, 38 months on average, that some of those cases, that's something. And still, we believe that this is a green card process, correct? It's a life-changing opportunity. I think timing is still, it's good. Because this is something that you have to plan. It's going to impact your family, your future generation. So don't focus too much on timing. I think just focus on this is a lifetime changing opportunity.
That totally agree. Yes, because many times we have to remind the applicant that those times that they are waiting, they can prepare themselves how to prepare themselves, transition to here to the US, how to start, and when they finish the contract with the employer, what will be their next step?
Correct. And one other advice is that once you apply to the process,
yes,
your life is not going to change. Your life in your home country has to continue
Yes.
the way it is, It's not because you apply to this process, then you're going to be just waiting on the process and kind of like planning your next, how your life is going to be. You apply to this position, your life keeps going, the same way it's been going in your home country. And eventually, you're going to get called for an interview. When you get called for an interview, normally, Paul, is about 1.5 months once you get the interview, from the time you get your interview schedule, final interview, until you go to the interview. That's probably between 1.5 months and 2 months, correct? There, it's when this becomes now, Okay, let's start planning. Let's start, getting ready. But my suggestion is apply. Your life continue. Keep working in your home country. Keep improving. Learn English. That's the most important part.
That is so true.
Learn English. That's the number one factor for success for a foreign national, Paul. What will be? It will be English. You need to have the better the English, the better your success in this country. So that's the most important part, because sometimes people is like, we apply and now it's taking long and our life had changed because we were waiting for this process. No, don't do that. Apply, your life continues.
Yes.
Totally agree. Yes.
Okay, so we're ready to questions. I don't know if you guys have general questions. We can address some general questions, and then Paul, some general questions that we hear all the time. For example, some of the I will say questions all the time is there is an age limit to apply. All right, that's something that we hear every single day. There is a minimum age limit, correct, Paul, which is 18. There is actually not an age limit, to apply. It is about your, for example, a position like stone trailers. It is working in an assembly line. It is a physical job. You need to be standing up for a long period of time. You need to be lifting heavy things. So you need to be in good health condition and physical condition in order to apply. Can you be 58 or 60 and apply? Oh, yes, if you're physically, capable. Yes, I don't know if you guys been into the States and go to the airport. We don't have this type of job, but you see sometimes people, working at the airport on 85 years old,
That's right.
But at the end, what I'm saying is that it is not correct, Paul. There's not an age limit. It's about if you're able to, if you have the conditions, and then you apply. Then there are some. For example, Chick-fil-A, they requires a good level of English to apply, because there will be an interview. And then if your level of English is not good enough, then you're not going to be offered a job, correct? So there's no age limit. It is about, you can apply to any job. If you meet the requirements, there's no age limit. Some other ones that we get a lot is this process guaranteed? Correct. That's all. That's a $1 million question. Is this process? The answer is that when you hear the word correct, Paul, guarantee, run away. It's fraud. At the end, we talk about the requirements, but no one absolutely can guarantee an outcome that it does not depend on you. So it's a process that does not depend on me or Paul. Paul will, work on he's in control. He's filing. If the company meets the requirements, most likely, the outcome is gonna be good. But we cannot guarantee, because maybe they have a different perception or not. But at the end, if you meet the requirements, correct, your process should have, should be successful. But we cannot guarantee that. That's why in our agreement, we're protecting the client. So it means that, if your process is gonna be denied for any reason not related with an inadmissibility, so meaning that you have an inadmissibility, then we can get you reapply with a different sponsor without any extra cost, or in a specific case, we can look for a refund, correct? But again, if you meet the requirements, apply. If you don't meet the requirements, do not apply. Your process is denied, correct?
Yeah.
In regards to that $1 million question, if somebody tells you your process is guaranteed, run away. and report that to authorities, correct? It is not legal. No one can guarantee an outcome. I will say also the time frame. I spoke to some other agency and they have a better timing than MCC or, on what Paul said about timing. Run away, the timings are not set by Paul or by MCC or by KPB, and also the times, Paul, it's every agency will they have a projection, but that's just a general projection. They have different the agents, and agents have different timelines. So the timelines and the time frames on each, for example, right now on the Department of Labor and on A140, there is a projected timeline. On the DS260 part, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, there is not, correct? You can figure it out based on, kind of like the retrogression, but there is no. But how do you say about the timeline? It's that people understand that it just no one has control about it, no? Paul.
Right, exactly. I mean, there's nothing, as much as we all wish we had complete control and could make this go very, very quickly, ultimately it is the US government and look, they're trying to follow the laws and the rules. And, one of the big ones is that within all of EB-3, there's 3 different types of cases, each with slightly different requirements, but certainly they are much, much more similar than different. But in our program, which is called Other Workers, where there's no specific, training required or experience required or anything like that, or if there is, it's quite small. We are limited to 10,000 per year, including, family members too in that. And so, that's one of the reasons I think the Department of Labor is going a little slower on the 9089s now, is they know that people are going to need to wait at the end of the process. So I wish they would approve them, because that's, this process is going to go badly. That's usually the stage, and we would like an approval there quicker, but but always, like, our cases get approved. We see them, pretty much every day. Another batch of approvals comes through. We get the good results for people and get them through the process. But the timing is, more than anything, it is impacted by the restriction on the number of visas available each year. That is probably not going to change anytime very soon. Between, we have a big election about 11 months from now. Neither party is going to want to do something to touch this between now and then. So, maybe after the results of that, a year from now, we'll have a discussion about, they're talking about adding numbers of visas and things like that. So we will see, but it's not going to be immediate. I know that KPB had sent some questions to me that are common, and that maybe people had specifically. So if it's okay, I'm just going to start on those. The first bunch of questions, and some throughout on the list, all have to do with recent, restrictions that the US government put in on giving visas to people from certain countries. Laos, Myanmar, Iran, Venezuela, and many more. This is a situation where we do not have all of the information yet. I will tell you the most important piece of information we do not have yet in a second, but the situation is in movement. And frankly, even just either yesterday or Monday, the US moved 5 countries, all in Africa, from partial restrictions to complete restrictions. So nowhere I don't think that we have any clients, or maybe, 1 or 2 in 15 years. But anyway, that just shows the process is still moving. We do not have to like these travel restrictions. I think most people do not. They poll even everyone in the US and ask, and most people do not think these are good or appropriate, but they are what they are. And we can be as mad as we want about them, and that gets us nowhere. So anyway, the reason these were implemented and the reason they can stand up in court, because we have the first time Donald Trump was president to know about this, is because the US government says, well, we have bad relationships or no relationships with some of these countries, and they do not share the types of information with us that lets us do like background checks and confirm that these people are who they say they are, that they have none of the inadmissibilities or problems that Manuel mentioned earlier. And the US government says these countries do not share enough information with us, the US government, to make us feel confident in these processes. And that may be true, that may not be true, but it works. And the courts have agreed with that. So we have visa restrictions. Now, one of the critical things that they learned the first time Donald Trump was president was they have to create, in order for these restrictions to continue, they have to create a way for countries to get off of the list of restrictions, you know? And so I think we can look at this in kind of like three ways. Now, the thing I mentioned earlier that I wanted to say was the US government was supposed to do this within 90 days of issuing the visa restriction. And so that was in June. So 90 days would be in September. We still do not have it. They told us in October when everyone was like, hey, where's this information? They'll be coming in November. It did not. So we still do not know what countries will need to do to get off the restricted list, but eventually it will be announced. I think a lot of countries are going to do this, and then we know some are almost certainly not. So if we look at the countries that are not going to do things to get off of the restricted list from the US government, think of the ones that have the worst, like relationship with the US, from the news. So Iran and North Korea, we do not even communicate with them. So like our government does not communicate with them. So I think that realistically, they will not do anything to come off the list. Some of the countries, like they mentioned, South Sudan has only existed for like 12 or 13 years, right? Like it's rich in resources, but the country itself is quite poor. And there are problems with the government. It's fairly new. There's not very much experience. And the country itself is quite poor. They do not have maybe the resources to create a system that will let them share the type of information that the US government will want to see. On the other side, we have countries that have had historically good enough relations with the US government that probably will do things to come off. And so like I look at Laos as that most likely. And then, there's of course countries in the middle where it could kind of go either way, right? And Myanmar is that example, which is to say that like there historically have not been terrible relations between the two countries, but most recently, they have not been so good. Not been so good at all. And that may be some things that are going on there. Another country in that thing, I look at like Venezuela, like maybe things that the US government is doing to put strain on the relationship. But, I think we need to think like, I'm a lot less worried about someone from Laos starting this process now than I am for someone from, Iran. And so we need to think of that. The things I would say to anyone is, keep these in mind if they apply. One, if someone has a second citizenship, they are generally not going to be subject. They're not going to be impacted by the restrictions. So the second citizenship will probably get you out of that. Now, if someone only has one citizenship, they are still restricted from the visas the way it's written right now. So if you are a spouse born in a restricted country but living someplace else, of the EB-3 person, that spouse will probably, the way it is written right now, not be eligible for a visa as long as the country is on the restricted list. So that's a problem. It's not good. We hope it changes, but that's the fact of today. I am just kind of reading through these sorts of things to make sure I've covered everything on those, and I think I have. Another topic was about medical and or psychological conditions that impact visa eligibility. This is another thing where the US government recently said, we are going to change our policy. We're going to look at more information. In the past, the medical report was just diseases that can be spread from one person to another, and a very specific list of about 5 of them. And then the US government said in, I think, November, like, well, we're going to start looking at other stuff too. That might be things like high blood pressure or diabetes, or like much more common sorts of things. I think realistically, it's basically impossible, because like if you flip a coin, right, like which side it lands on because it's right there in front of you. What the US government is asking the doctors, in all these countries to do is not that. It's to look, and it's to say whether they think this person is healthy enough that they're not going to use government service and government paid medical care and things like that in the future. That's not how the rules are supposed to work. It's supposed to be backward looking, or at least current. Like, what does this person have today that creates, a risk? And so that's why it's always been the diseases that spread between people. And so I think that, enforcing this rule, I think we should treat it the same as it always has been, and assume mainly it's going to come down to, those specific illnesses that were a problem in the past will continue to be, but they're very, very, very rare. And so anyway, we'll see, and we'll do what we need to do, and we will get second opinions from local doctors if we need to, and we'll fight this and so on. But I just think the way they set the rules up for this was done in a very fast way. It was rushed through, and it was not thought about enough, because the goal of analyzing these factors that they're giving to the doctors now, it basically is if it's not an impossible task, it's close to make sure it's applied fairly and consistently among people, among countries, among so on. It's, so I think we should treat it, kind of as business as usual here. I do not expect there are going to be additional, problems. Some people had questions about where to do visa, interviews, and it is allowed in the citizenship country for anyone, and it is allowed in any country where they have residency. And so if you are like a spouse living in the home country of your husband or wife, you will be able to do it there, almost certainly, because you're allowed to stay there. There were additional questions about possible past criminal charges or allegations or anything. On those, I would say that typically it must be quite a serious offense, or it must involve something in the US immigration code. There's a lot of restrictions on things that involve dishonesty. So if there's a charge, even if it's not serious, for theft, or stealing something, that might be a problem. But most lower level things, someone used an example of, driving a car after drinking alcohol, that's probably not going to be the level of seriousness that impacts the immigration process. There's got to be something fairly serious, but this is important. This is a case-by-case question. So we should, if you have this situation, bring it up to KPB. They can probably answer it. If they can't, they'll contact MCC or put in a ticket in the Zendesk system, and we'll all discuss and answer and provide the information that we need. So I don't think there's really much to worry about there. And then someone had asked if things like proxy marriages or virtual or online marriages are allowed to qualify someone as a dependent in this process. That is, right now, the guidance from the US government is that those marriages are, in almost all cases, going to be considered valid and good and allowed, and the spouse will qualify. That could change in the future, but right now they're being nice and good on this issue. Unlike a lot of other stuff right now, this is one where things seem to maybe be getting a little bit better for us, for our clients. Finally, the last questions were just about things like immigration violations in other countries. Typically, unless there's a criminal charge involved, the US government will not consider immigration violations in other countries. So that mostly, it's good to ask specifically about your case. And like we said, KPP can answer. And if it's complicated, they can bring it to us. And between MCC and my office, we'll be able to respond, and give everyone confidence that they're getting the correct answer and advice. So we may not like it, but it'll be correct information. So anyway, those are the questions that I think were written ahead of time. I'll let kind of KPB figure out anything else you want to hear from Manuel or me, or if we want to, call it a day here, but we've gotten through all the main topics that I knew about beforehand.
No, excellent. I'm going to have to jump really quick because I also have another meeting that I have to actually get in the car and run to the office. So, but I appreciate, and I know you guys will continue. Paul, thank you again. But everyone, thanks for having me here. It's always a pleasure.
All right.
Yes.
Very good.
Thank you so much, Manuel, that you joined us today. And I want to add a little bit to Paul about giving information. It's very important for the candidate or applicant to enclose all the information about their background. Don't hide any information, because come up front so we can discuss and bring it to Paul and his group to help you to determine is it good for you to apply for the program, right, Paul? Just try to enclose all the information. Everything is important. If you hide some information and the government found out later, it might affect all those process and everything. So it's better to bring up all the information, enclose all the information. We discuss and we consult with Paul and his group, and then we can help you better and serve you better.
Yeah. Paul, we might have some question. We waiting for the question from
Yep.
the people come. Okay, so yes, in Thai, they say that if the people come and then พอเข้ามาที่นี่แล้วใช่ไหมคะแล้วสปอนเซอร์เนี่ยไม่มีงานให้เขานะคะ2 เดือนแล้วเขาสามารถที่จะไปหางานที่อื่นได้ไหมนะคะ
Yeah, it's the question is in English that if the sponsor when the applicant already got the green card and arrived in the US, if for like couple months the sponsor haven't provide or didn't have the job position that they apply for them, can the applicant find another job somewhere else? Would that affect the contract that the applicant have with the sponsor?
This does not happen. If this happens, we have a really, really big problem, because we should know about this beforehand. And if there's an issue with the job, we need to figure out like an alternative. But in the sponsors MCC and my office work with, these companies need people. They want people. Yes. They want people way before they're actually able to arrive. So, I can't really even answer this, because if the sponsor is not saying, like, we shouldn't have gone to the visa interview if there's not a job there, because that's not allowed. Right. But critically, most importantly, what I said first is the important thing is like, this does not happen with the sponsors. This does not happen with the employers.
What if?
I mean, probably if this happens, someone shouldn't have gone to the visa interview and did fraud, and they would always be able to be deported, and their green card should be taken away, and they will never be able to become a citizen. So it's like really serious. The people have to do the jobs, or we have a major problem. So I mean, I get calls about this from other offices, clients all the time, and they're like, I got a green card a year ago and I've never worked for the employer. And I said, you know, what do you want me to do? Like, now is not the time to deal with that. The time to deal with that was before your visa interview, because now it looks like you said you were coming to do a job that does not exist at the visa interview. And that is a real problem. So, you know, we really, really, really cannot let this happen. It would be a disaster.
Well, what if the sponsor doesn't have the position for the employee, even though they already went through and they get the green card and they have? Then
the process ends.
They don't know.
We'd have to start at the beginning again.
But if they come,
no, there's no but here. This is okay. This is the U.S. government's program that exists to help employers get the people they need. So I understand that situation could be very frustrating and difficult for a client, and difficult and seems unfair.
Yes.
You know, I agree with all of that. But the rules say what they say, and the employer has to have the job, the person has to do it. If we do not do that, there's really not a lot else to talk about. You know, someone has done something wrong if we are in the situation that's being described here. And like, I'm not upset or anything, but we need to understand how serious this is, because this is the point of the whole process.
Yes.
If the person does not do the job, they should not have gotten the green card. The way it's set up might not be fair. Right? It might not be, but it is set up the way it is set up. The rules say what they say. And so we have to accept that and make sure, like, if you look, like when we do the ability to pay things in I-140s and so on, you know, I always have the employers like tax returns, and you put certain information about the company, the name, the address, the employer identification number. You on your tax forms, you also say the date that it was started. And like Stoughton Trailers was sometime in the 1960s or 1970s. A lot of these like, you know, bus companies like have been around for more than 100 years. These are companies that are big. They have lots of needs. They always have spaces for people to join them and help them, you know, and become good team members. And their needs are the same from year to year. And critically, with my office and with MCC, we speak to the employers to understand what the needs are. And we do not go beyond that just because we want, you know, more clients or anything like that. Like some of the companies have huge needs, you know, and some are smaller. But we make sure that we avoid the problem situation, because when we get to the problem situation, it is usually already too late to do anything to fix it. And so we have to just like, there's so many things here in this process that go on before, you know, the clients see, and before we even, you know, start contacting recruiters about, hey, there are 50 positions at this employer and, you know, 20 at this one, right? Like before those conversations even happen, we have done so much to qualify the employers for a specific number, to make sure, you know, we know exactly where everyone's going and how it will be done and how they will get people on, and everything like that. And so like the critical, like we have like a saying here, and I mean, I think maybe like with second languages, it may not be perfectly easy to translate, but like the idea is it is better to prevent, to prevent a problem than it is to cure one, right? I think like we all have lived for 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years in the world. Like That's true. Any adult, knows that. And so in these situations, like, we cannot get to the stage where something like that's going to happen, because if we do, then frankly, it would be either my fault or MCC's fault or the fault of like people who, help us with employers and so on. Now, look, things can change. Companies can get bought. Companies can get sold. There's usually pretty good rules about that let us like transfer to the new company and keep cases going and things like that. But if the company just says, we don't need people anymore, we have a real problem, because as we talked about in the beginning, this requires everyone to be involved, to be in agreement, and to be working towards the same goal. I wish I could look at everyone and say, I control everything, I am responsible for everything, and we get all our cases approved. And I'm the only one that matters, and I will make sure that we get through. That is not how this works. The employer has to be part of it. The candidate or client has to be part of it. MCC, critical. Everyone, KPP, critical. Everyone has a role, to do that's very, very important. But that, we can never let it get to a point where we're continuing cases if the employer is not available. And I know how unfair that sounds. I agree that is not ideal, and we should be able to transfer that person, but and let them have their timeline not be disrupted or changed. But that's not the rule. And we know that. And so that's why we prepare by making sure we have the correct employers who have the needs always, who have been in business for an extremely long time, and who will be able to take and onboard and hire these people so they can fulfill their commitment and either stay there and be happy and get promoted and begin a career, or they can move on to doing whatever else they want once they've completed the work commitment to the employer. But these things always get found out and discovered, in the future, whether it's when renewing a green card or whether it's applying for US citizenship. You'll need to prove with tax documents and documents created by the employer that you actually came and did the job that you said you were going to do. And as long as you have, everything will be okay. And that's when everyone wins. The employer will get the help that they need. MCC and KPB and my office will be able to close the file and say we were successful and we did what we were hired to do. And then the person will be able to become, if they want, a US citizen. And so we just have to follow, the rules and view this as a team effort where everyone needs to, do all the things that they plan to do at the beginning. And we just cannot let it get to the point where we're even considering talking about like jobs not being available. I mean, I'm sorry, and I wish there was an easier way, but like, this is the most critical thing, is that like the job has to be done. There is no other way around it.
Oh, right. Okay.
What would be the advice, the action that you take for the employee, just in case?
I mean, it sounds like maybe there's a situation here that that's not my cases or my office, and people are like in that scenario right now. And like, that's bad. And you got a lot of trouble if that's happening, because they are not going to be able to do anything. Someone's got to contact the employer and figure out what's going on and get them to, agree to accept the employees that they, said they would at the beginning. And so like this is a major difference, I think, between my office and MCC, how we deal with employers, and what maybe other, people out there are doing, which is that like, we help the employers not just with EB-3. We also have like additional recruiting help we can give involving people already in the US, helping them find, temporary solutions, whether that's US workers or other immigration programs. There's lots of things we do to make and have a much more complete relationship with the employers, because MCC in my office know that's important. We've been doing this a very long time, and 3 years or 4 years or whatever is an incredibly long time that this process takes, and a lot can change. Think of where you were, what you were doing 4 years ago, and what you looked like, and what your kid is 9 now, and they were 5 then, and like this is a different world, right? Like so there's a lot that has to be done to keep the employers like happy with all of our services, so that there's a bridge that the EB-3 people are going to be able to cross when the time comes, and we, through having good relationships with these employers and addressing their labor needs, we build that bridge so that they do not tell us, oh yeah, we have 30 interviews scheduled, but we only have 5 positions right now. That's a really serious problem. I'm happy to discuss it and try to find solutions, but like the first solution, and really you shouldn't consider anything else until there's an answer to this, is trying to get the employer to follow what was in the 9089, the I-140, what the plan was at the beginning. Because if that cannot happen, then realistically the case is over. I mean, there's not an exception. It is, like I said, not fair. It doesn't feel like with people waiting this long and for then something like that to happen. But like I said, if you got questions, you can send them to me, and I'll discuss it with you and try to help, get involved, whatever we need. But the critical thing is having the employer is having a good enough relationship with the employer to make sure that does not happen.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for your time today. You give us a lot of knowledge. Very, very good for everyone today.
We really appreciate that you are here with us today. And
wonderful.
Definitely, people, the audience, you can send all the questions that you have through all the channel that KPB have. We will collect them, and we will send it over to Paul, so he can help and give some answer from those questions.
ค่ะเดี๋ยวต่อจากนี้นะคะเดี๋ยวพอก็จะไปจากรายการนะคะแต่ว่าทุกคนสามารถที่จะส่งคำถามเข้ามาได้นะคะเราจะส่งให้ทางทนายที่หลังนะคะแล้วก็เดี๋ยวเราจะมีพูดถึงงานที่มีอยู่นะคะแล้วก็กิจกรรมที่เราจะทำต้นปีหน้านะคะ
Once again, we would like to thank you, Paul, so much.
Thank you, everyone.
And, if anything, we hope in the future we can have you again here with us again.
Thank you.
This is wonderful. Thank you so much for organizing all of this.
Hopefully I'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have happy holiday.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks.
ก็เดี๋ยวเราพบกับทางพี่ตี้ต่อนะคะพี่ตี้วันนี้พี่ตี้จะมาแจกแจงเกี่ยวกับงานที่เรามีอยู่นะคะว่ามีอะไรบ้างนะคะขอเชิญพี่ตี้ค่ะสวัสดีค่ะปิดเสียงอยู่สวัสดีครับสวัสดีค่ะ
อยากเน้นอีกรอบที่พอพูดเมื่อกี้นะคะเป็นสิ่งที่สำคัญมากในการเลือกนายจ้างเพราะฉะนั้นพี่ตี้ก็นำเสนอนายจ้างที่เรามีตอนนี้นะคะว่าการเลือกนายจ้างเป็นสิ่งสำคัญมากเพราะว่าในช่วงระยะเวลาที่เรารอเนี่ยคืออะไรหลายอย่างก็เกิดขึ้นได้เนาะ
เกิดขึ้นได้ก็แสดงว่าสปอนเซอร์ไม่แน่นพอนะคะตอนนี้เรามีสปอนเซอร์อะไรบ้างเป็นยังไงบ้างสปอนเซอร์เรา
โอเคตอนนี้เรามีนายจ้างหรือสปอนเซอร์เราอยู่มีอยู่2ที่เนาะ
ค่ะ
ซึ่งที่แรกเลยเป็นที่โปรดปรานมากก็คืองานซอตันเทเลอร์นะครับที่เมืองซอตันรัฐวิสคอนซินอันนี้เป็นงานที่ป๊อปมากผู้สมัครเราตอนนี้น่าจะ200แล้วมั้งเฉพาะงานนี้งานเดียวซึ่งถือว่าเยอะมากอีกหน่อยคนไทยก็ไปกองอยู่ที่นี่กันเต็มไปหมดเลยเป็นหมู่บ้าน
ไปฉลอง
ก็มีอยู่ประมาณ200ครอบครัวแล้วเนาะ ก็ถือว่ามากมายแล้วก็มันไม่ใช่มากเพราะว่าด้วยความที่มันง่ายแต่ด้วยความที่นายจ้างเป็นนายจ้างที่ดีมากเป็นโรงงานผลิตรถเทรลเลอร์ที่ใหญ่มาก
อือฮึ
บริษัทมีความมั่นคงมาก เพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ยเคสของเราก็จะรู้สึกว่าอุ่นใจมากขึ้นก็อย่าลืมว่านายจ้างมันคือหนึ่งในความเสี่ยงของเราใช่ไหมอย่างที่ลูบี้เราก็พูดถึงเนาะ
ค่ะ
นะครับก็อันนี้เนี่ยค่าแรงก็ไม่ขี้เหร่เลย18 เหรียญต่อชั่วโมงซึ่งมากกว่าค่าแรงขั้นต่ำโดยในพื้นที่นั้นอยู่แล้วนะครับ
อือฮึ
ก็ส่วนสวัสดิการอะไรต่างๆ ก็ถือว่าดีอยู่แล้วในตัวของโรงงานนะเนาะบรรยากาศก็หนาวนิดๆหน่อยๆซึ่งช่วงนี้ก็คงน่าจะหนาวพอสมควรในเมืองวิสคอนซินนะฮะแต่ก็เป็น
แต่
งาน
เขาก็
ที่
มี
แนะน
4 ฤดูเนาะก็มีหน้าร้อนอะไรมีอย่างเงี้ยก็
ำใช่เขาก็มีหน้าร้อนซึ่ง
จ้ะ
ถามว่าร้อนเหมือนเมืองไทยไหมก็ร้อนเหมือนเมืองไทยไม่ต่างกันเท่าไหร่แต่ก็หนาวจับใจเช่นกัน แต่ว่าก็ไม่ได้อยู่กันใกล้ๆเท่าไหร่เนาะฤดูกาลแต่ว่าก็เป็นงานที่แนะนำมากที่สุดของเราเนาะงานต่อมาก็คืองานที่ชิปฟิเลก็จะเป็นงานโรงงานแซนด์วิชนะฮะไม่ใช่โรงงานสิต้องเรียกว่าเป็นร้านอาหารนะเนาะอาหารแซนด์วิชไก่สำหรับคนชอบกินไก่ทอดไก่แซนด์วิชหรืออะไรก็แล้วแต่งานนี้ก็ถือว่าก็ใช้ได้อยู่นะงานนี้ก็ถือว่ารับมาหลายสิบคนแต่ว่าตอนนี้ก็เหลืออยู่แค่10 กว่าคนแล้วเนาะก็ถือว่าใช้ได้นะแต่งานนี้ก็อาจจะเข้มข้นหน่อยตรงที่ต้องใช้ภาษาอังกฤษนิดนึงนะฮะซึ่งก็ต้องมีการทดสอบว่าระดับภาษากันนิดนึงโดยการสัมภาษณ์กับนายจ้างโดยตรงนะฮะส่วนค่าแรงก็ไม่ขี้เหร่เลยเนาะก็16 เหรียญต่อชั่วโมงถือว่าเยอะพอสมควรนะฮะสำหรับการที่จะอยู่เมืองนี้ก็คือที่รัฐเทนเนสซีก็ผมว่าค่าแรงก็ไม่ขี้เหร่เทียบกับรายได้แล้วก็เทียบกับรายจ่ายต่างๆเนาะงานทั้ง2 งานนี้ก็เป็นงานที่เรามีณวันนี้นะฮะอนาคตเราไม่รู้ว่าเมื่อไหร่แต่2 งานที่มันมีความแตกต่างกันก็คืองานซอลตันเนี่ยถ้าเราจ่ายเงินแล้วเนี่ยเราก็จะสามารถได้บัตรคิวหรือว่า priority date เลยเนาะในวันที่23นี้จะเริ่มสตาร์ทแต่ถ้างานชิคเกเลเนี่ยก็ต้องรออีกนิดนึงเพราะว่ามันยังไม่พร้อมทำไฟล์ LC หรือยังไม่ได้พร้อมที่จะได้ PD เราอาจจะต้องรอคอยประมาณควอเตอร์1ปี26ก็คือปีหน้านั่นเองก็รักงานไหนชอบงานไหนชอบเมืองไหนก็เลือกตามสบายใจซึ่งแน่นอนก็ไม่มีช้อยเลือกมากมีอยู่แค่2 จ็อบ
แล้วก็ที่สำคัญมากก็คือนายจ้างสำคัญมากพิจารณาคิดให้ดีๆคิดให้รอบคอบเพราะว่าในช่วงระยะเวลา
เรื่อง EB-3 มาผมว่าเขาก็คงรู้เนาะว่ามันมีบางที่บางงานก็มันมีการยกเลิกระหว่างทางก็มี
ถูก
ค่ะ
นายจ้างจึงเป็นหัวใจสำคัญมากๆที่เราควรจะให้ความสำคัญมาก
ๆแล้วอันนี้จะเน้นนิดนึงนะคะบริษัทสเตอร์เติลเนี่ยเขาก็รับพนักงานที่ทำ EB-3 มาหลายช่วงแล้วนะคะ
ปีนึงเขารับหลายร้อยคนมากเพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ยไม่ต้องถามว่าบริษัทเขามีความมั่นคงและแข็งแรงแค่ไหนนะซึ่งเป็นหลักกันไว้
ก็มีคุณมานูเอลก็เพิ่งเมนชั่นไปว่า17-18 รอบที่เขารับพนักงานเข้ามาที่นี่ก็ถือว่ามั่นคงมาก
แต่ก็ดีใจ
ไม่ค่อยจะรู้เลยนะว่าเชียร์ที่ไหนเนี่ย
ยูจะเชียร์มันเชียร์ได้แค่2 ด้านและซ้ายหรือขวาก็เลือกเอาแล้วกัน
แดงหรือน้ำเงินเนี้ยเหรอ
นั่นสิเนาะแล้วก็ขอให้ได้มาที่อเมริกาก็แนะนำว่าเลือกงานไหนที่มาได้เร็วก็พอเราได้มาแน่นอนก็คือ1 วันที่เราสามารถสร้างเงินได้ก็ถือว่าเยอะมากถ้าเทียบกับเมืองไทยก็หลายวันหลายเดือนเนี่ยเนาะถ้าเทียบกันครับโอเคแล้วก็เดี๋ยวเราไปพบกับอะไรนะพี่หญิงกับพี่นีน่าเนาะพูดถึงเรื่อง
คุณหญิงกับคุณพี่แองจี้
ใช่โอ้ยพูดผิดน้องแองจี้กับคุณหญิงและคุณพี่หญิงนะครับว่าเราจะมีกิจกรรมอะไรในวันข้างหน้าต่อไปนะครับสวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีค่ะแองจี้ค่ะพี่หญิงต้องเปิดไมค์นะคะเดี๋ยว
นะคะค่ะสวัสดีค่ะครั้งนะคะเมื่อกี้พี่หญิงไม่ได้เปิดไมค์ขอโทษทีนะคะคือฟังเพลินมากค่ะแองจี้คือฟังเพลินแล้วก็ได้ความรู้แน่นๆนะคะเดี๋ยว เวลาใกล้หมดแล้วพี่หญิงนะคะขอประชาสัมพันธ์นิดนึงนะคะ KPB ของเรานะคะกำลังจะมีงานนะคะที่เรียกว่า KPB Family Get Together นะคะครั้งที่2ที่เมืองไทยนะคะที่เมืองไทยจัดเป็นครั้งที่2แล้วแต่ว่าของที่นิวยอร์กเนาะที่ US ก็เพิ่งจัดไปเมื่อ September ที่ผ่านมานะคะงานนี้นะคะสำหรับผู้ที่สมัครแล้วเท่านั้นนะคะสำหรับที่ครอบครัว Family นะคะสมัครแล้วและผู้ติดตามเท่านั้นนะคะงานนี้นะคะก็จะได้พบ co-founder นะคะก็จะเป็นพี่เกดนะคะพี่ตีพี่แองจี้แล้วก็พี่หญิงนะคะงานนี้จัดที่ไหนนะคะแองจี้
จัดที่ Grand Central Point Hotel ค่ะที่กรุงเทพนั่นเอง
นะคะเวลานะคะวันเวลาเนี่ยเดี๋ยวยังไงขออัปเดตอีกครั้งหนึ่งนะคะงานนี้นะคะเป็นงานที่อบอุ่นนะคะสำหรับคนที่สมัครไปแล้วก็มาเจอกันมาทานข้าวร่วมกันนะคะมาพูดคุยกันนะคะจะได้มาเจอเพื่อนๆที่ได้ร่วมทางไปด้วยกันเนาะได้รู้ว่างานนี้แต่ละคนโปรเซสไหนนะคะสเต็ปเป็นยังไงนะคะคือมีเพื่อนร่วมทางอย่างนั้นเถอะได้อุ่นใจนะคะแล้วก็มาเจอพวกเรานะคะเจอตัวเป็นๆพวกเราก็จะบินจากที่อเมริกานะคะไปเข้างานนะคะไปเจอกันนะคะมีคำถามอะไรที่สงสัยนะคะหรือต้องการความรู้อะไรก็สามารถที่จะเจอแล้วก็ถามพวกเราได้โดยตรงเลยนะคะตัวเป็นๆนะคะและงานนี้นะคะก็จะพบคุณแพทริกนะคะซึ่งจะมาให้ความรู้นะคะในเรื่องของ benefit ต่างๆเมื่อคุณเข้ามาในอเมริกาแล้วได้กินการแล้วได้งานทำแล้วคุณก็ต้องเสียภาษีนะคะและ benefit ต่างๆที่คุณจะได้รับมีอะไรบ้างซึ่งเยอะมากนะคะซึ่งคุณแพทริกเนี่ยเราก็เคยเห็นกันแวบๆในFriday Talk เนาะแล้วก็คุณแพทริกก็เคยได้ไปร่วมงาน KPB Family Get Together ที่นิวยอร์กมาแล้วนะคะแองจี้นะคะ
โอเคค่ะแล้วก็ยังได้เจอพวกเราเนาะ co-founder ซึ่งเราก็จะมีให้คำแนะนำทุกอย่างการใช้ชีวิตที่อเมริกาเป็นยังไงอันนี้พวกเราก็จะมาคอยตอบคอยให้คำแนะนำทุกคนในงานด้วยค่ะ
ใช่ค่ะแล้วก็ยังได้ทานอาหารนะคะร่วมกันอาหารนี้ก็จะเป็นอาหารหลากหลายนะคะแล้วก็มีของหวานมีของคาวนะคะซึ่งน่าทานมากคือเหมือนกับแบบมาเชื่อมความสัมพันธ์เนาะมารู้จักว่าพวกเราไม่ได้หายไปไหนนะคะพวกเราอยู่ตรงนี้คอยช่วยเหลือคอยซัพพอร์ตนะคะแล้วพวกเราก็มีประสบการณ์โดยตรงที่อเมริกานะคะไม่ว่าจะเป็นเรื่องการดำเนินชีวิตนะคะการทำงานหรือว่าในเรื่องของลูกเข้าโรงเรียนคือทุกอย่างเลยนะคะมาเจอพวกเราได้นะคะโอเควันนี้เป็นเวลาที่เหมาะสมแล้วเนาะเวลาอาจจะล่วงเลยมานิดนึงนะคะมาเชิญพี่เกดพี่นีน่านะคะพี่ตี้นะคะอีกครั้งนึง
ก็วันนี้นะคะความรู้แน่นๆนะคะจากทางMCC แล้วก็ลอยเยอร์นะคะแล้วก็จากพวกเราทุกคนและอย่างที่พี่หญิงกับแองจี้บอกแล้วนะคะว่าเราจะเจอกันอีกทีที่กรุงเทพนะคะวันนี้ก็ขอบคุณทุกคนมากนะคะที่เข้าฟังสัมมนาวันนี้ค่ะ
ขอเพิ่มเติมนิดนึงเนาะตอนแรกที่เราบอกว่าจะเป็นกุมภาที่8แต่ตอนนี้เราเปลี่ยนเป็นวันที่25มกราแล้วเนาะเนื่องจากเหตุผลทางการเลือกตั้งเขาจัดวันเลือกตั้งมันเป็นวันที่8กุมภาพอดีเลิกงามยามดีตรงกับวันที่เราตั้งครั้งแรกเพราะฉะนั้นเราก็จำเป็นต้องเลื่อนเวลาให้เร็วขึ้นเพื่อให้ตรงกับช่วงเวลาที่co-founder ทุกท่านได้อยู่ที่เมืองไทยแล้วก็ไม่ขัดต่อกฎหรือกติกาของทางกกต.นะคะเราก็จะต้องปฏิบัติตามกฎหมายท้องถิ่นประมาณนั้นนะคะก็เน้นอีกครั้งไปเจอเราเปลี่ยนวันงานนะคะจากวันที่8กุมภาที่ท่านไหนที่อาจจะได้ลงทะเบียนมาแล้วก็รบกวนลองเช็คอีกครั้งหนึ่งว่าเปลี่ยนตารางของท่านกลับมาเป็นวันอาทิตย์ที่25มกราคมเนี่ยได้หรือเปล่านะคะฝากตรงนี้นิดนึงค่ะ
ยังไงก็วันนี้ต้องขอบคุณทุกคนมากๆนะคะที่ชมรายการกันนะคะก็อย่าลืมติดตามรายการของเรา Friday Talk ของเราด้วยนะคะแล้วก็มีช่องทางไหนนะคะที่ติดต่อกับทาง KPB ได้ค่ะ
ค่ะยังไงก็ฝากกดไลค์กดแชร์นะคะ Facebook Page ค่ะ Instagram นะคะแล้วก็ถ้ามีคำถามอะไรทักหา KPB Line ได้เลยค่ะ KPB EB-3 Visa ค่ะ
โอ วันนี้ต้องขอบคุณมากค่ะ สวัสดีค่ะทุกๆคน
สวัสดีครับ
ขอบคุณค่ะ